Hello guys and welcome back to a brand new video here on the Chapo Talks LFC channel. Today we're going to be doing a challenge inspired by who I believe is the best Liverpool creator on social media, GeorgeScaifeLFC. He did this, I want to say a month back. So you get 3 signings and you just got to decide who we're selling. Every player you sell, you get in another signing as well. See you loan, see you sell, and then end up with our final squad for next season. As you can see just now, we've got our 4 goalkeepers, we've got our 2 centre backs on each side, full backs, midfielders, etc. And obviously, Szoboszlai can play it here, Munoz can play it here, Gakpo can play it up here. It all has to be taken into account, as well as sort of Jones over here. The first thing I'm going to do, however, is I'm going to move Ekitike over here. I'm going to move Bradley over here as well, because they're both injured for a considerable amount of time. I know Bradley is back at the AXA in rehab, so he might be ready for sort of October time, but for the start of the season he won't be there. And Ekitike, it's looking like the new year before we see him again. Endo and Pastetic are both back in the training centre as well as Harvey Elliott, and I think the players on Jeremy Jacque and Giovanni Leone as well. It's looking like Leone might be back for the start of the season, if not just after. So maybe, I think I'm going to leave him there anyway. Yeah, so I'll go through each player, tell you who I'd loan, tell you who I'd sell, tell you who I'd keep, and then tell you who I would bring in. If you do enjoy, like and subscribe. It's the first video on this channel, so I promise I'll get better from here. But if you do enjoy it, like and subscribe. It does help me out a lot. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is move Gakpo over to striker. Here we go. So in goal, I think it's relatively simple. I think you keep all of them. Woodman is our third choice. Obviously, Alisson is our first. Mamardashvili is a second. Petchy with the under 21s. I think he's with them at the minute. Also, I've not got them on here, but sort of Jaden Dans, Kieran Morrison, Nallo, Will Wright, all the other under 21s boys aren't on here. However, I think they can make a real impact throughout the season, sort of in the cup games, and then players like Naoni and stuff and Engamoa who are on here will make a difference throughout the league, Champions League campaigns, because they're both incredible talents. And I can see Will Wright getting some minutes off the bench, especially maybe until Ekitike is back. I'm not sure kind of the level that he's at, but one to look out for sure. Anyway, so the goalkeeper's there. 4 at the back, again, I'm keeping them. However, my first of the 3 given signings will be a centre-back. I think my sold players I'll chuck up here next to me. Calvin Ramsey's the first one. I just don't think he really has a future at the club, and I think he knows that. And I think, yeah, right time to sell, which leaves us a little light at right back, which brings me to my second signing, and also brings me to moving Jones over here, and I'll explain why after I've been through the rest of the team. Now, at left back, I'm keeping Tsimikas. I've heard a lot about he's just not good enough, and I think kind of hear it in terms of to start, but Kirkes is very durable. I feel like he could quite comfortably play 90 minutes twice a week all season. He's not a very injury prone player. However, if we need someone on for the last sort of 10 minutes, I don't think Tsimikas is a bad option, and for rotation in the cup and stuff. And Gomez can always play there, but it also brings me back to this right back I'm signing, who I'll get on to in just a minute. Moving on to the midfield, I would keep I'm keeping Gravenberch, Pacetic, and Endo. I'm keeping Endo just because he's not really got any sell value. I think it's 1 year left on his deal, and he can always fill in at centre back if we have another sort of injury crisis there, which isn't ideal, but I think it works for all parties. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move Szoboszlai back to here, and I'm selling McAllister. He's had a good World Cup, McAllister, I feel, with Argentina. He played better for Argentina than he has for us this past season. But I just feel like one of him or Jones is going to go, and I would rather keep Jones. I think he's more versatile. I also think he's just a better player for the way that Areola's going to want to play. And also we'll get a lot more for McAllister. It's looking like if he does go, it'll be upwards of 60 million, whereas Jones is bidding like 25, 30 for him. So I don't know what his peak value is. But I honestly think, I don't want to say he's got a higher ceiling than McAllister, but he's younger than McAllister. And he's a homegrown player. I think there's just more upside to keeping him. And that's why I'm going to do that. Which moves Szoboszlai back here. Leaves Wirtz kind of alone in the 10. And then Chiesa goes as well. I just think it's best for both parties there. If he does, oh yeah, I forgot. Midfield signings essential. And then we've sold 3 players, so we've unlocked some more signings there. One of which is going to be a winger. I'll pop him on the right for now. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I bring Jones back into here and I move Szoboszlai here. I think Curtis Jones is definitely better in the 8 than he is anywhere else on the pitch. However, I had reasoning for playing over here, and I'll go. Maybe that's a separate video. I'll make that a separate video. But yeah, I think he'll be good in the 8. My starting midfield would be Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, Wirtz, Szoboszlai back here. But just for depth's sake, we'll leave it like this. And then I'm keeping all the attackers. I think there's been a lot of talk about Harvey Elliott. I like him just because he's versatile. He won't be a starter. He'll just be sort of what he was in that Klopp last season, or the slot first season, making an impact off the bench, playing in the cup games, and then hopefully he impresses in the minutes he does get, and then his market value will go up and we can sell him next summer. Gakpo stays for me. There's been interest from Tottenham, I've heard, but I think just especially, I feel like he could go in January if Ekitike makes a return and we sign another attacker. However, I like him staying now just because he can play on the left and up front. I'm actually going to, that'll be my final signing. I still think we need 2 signings in the front line. And I actually haven't decided who they'll be. I do know that my right back that I'm signing will be Tino Livramento, for the sole purpose that he's a world-class right back, I feel. Maybe a little injury prone for what we need, but obviously if Bradley comes back, that's 3 there. And also he's versatile. He's played off the left for quite a big part of his career. He can do a job on both sides, and that's why I would bring him in. That centre back, I think Maxime Lacroix is a good option. I would have said Van Hecke, but he's gone. Well, I wanted Senesi. That's who I wanted at the start of the summer, however. He's away at Tottenham. And I also wanted Anthony Gordon at the start of the summer. Obviously, he's away to Barcelona. He hasn't had a very good World Cup, actually. But I still think on his day he's a great player. And he provides depth out there. But obviously, it's necessary. I'll move on to my midfielder because that's who I'm sure. And I want that to be Lamine Camara. And almost, yeah. There's been a lot of talk of Adam Wharton, which I don't like. Alex Scott as well. I don't mind Alex Scott as an option, but Bournemouth are wanting upwards of 80 million for him now. I think Elliot Anderson's ruined the market a little bit, but players seem to be dead cheap when you buy them from France. I think Cherky's a prime example of that. It's a weird one, but I like Lamine Camara. I think he's cheaper than Alex Scott, and he'll be cheaper than Adam Wharton. And also he provides sort of a physical presence, which I feel like Gravenberch lacks, and Curtis Jones does as well. Just a little bit. I think Curtis Jones is better than people give him credit for, but I don't think he's a massive presence in the midfield. And I feel like if you have a midfield if you have Szoboszlai on the right, and then a Wirtz, Jones, Gravenberch midfield. It's one of the weakest midfields in the league, I think. So I think add in a little bit of physicality, because he won't start all the time, but maybe those games where we just need someone to hold it down, be a bit more physical. That's the guy I want for it. One of my wingers is a similar to Daniel Munoz. Maybe just chuck 40 million at Malik Fofana from Lyon. Left-footed, but he prefers it on the left, but he can also play on the right. He can also play in the 10, I think, as well, which is really good. Yeah, and again, another one from Ligue 1, which also brings me to Bradley Barcola, who might cost between 90 and 100, maybe even more. But I feel like you just need another winger like that. Someone almost like a star player, if you will. Someone to replace Mo Salah, not necessarily in his goal contributions or anything, but in terms of the impact he's going to have feeding Isak, getting goals himself, creating chances. And that only brings me on to my centre back. I think I'd just go with Maxime Lacroix. If I can spell his name right. There we go. He's quick. He's one of the quickest in the league. And I feel like he doesn't need to start every game. I would start Jeremy Jacquet. And I would have Lacroix playing back up to Van Dijk and covering over here for Jeremy Jacquet. I just can't really think of anyone else who would be a good fit. Whereas what would happen? Yeah, I'm happy with Maxime Lacroix there. This is sort of ideal scenario. I would bring in one more midfielder and I would make it Alex Scott, I think. However, the way the market's going, I don't think there's money for that. So chuck him up there as sort of a bonus player, if you will. But yeah, I like this. You've got Livramento who can cover on both sides. I'll bring Bradley and Ekitike back in just to give a representation of what it would be like when everyone's fit. Let me bring Daniel Munoz over here. Still leaves us a little light on the right-hand side, which is why it's tricky, because the market's just so light in terms of right wingers at the moment. Wingers in general. I think attackers in general. It's just a bit of the market's a little light. No one wants to give up their attackers, obviously. But I think I'm relatively happy with this, just in terms of the profile of player we've got and the depth. So Engamoa can play there. It's just a lot of versatile players, a lot of options on how you want to set up. If I just move everyone over below me here, I'll show you the 11 that I would kick off the season with. This, with Kirkes making sort of underlapping runs rather than playing high with Barcola, and Frimpong would be playing high, and it would almost be like it's almost like a 3-2-2-3, or a 3-2-5, if you will. And then when Kirkes bombs forward, you kind of... So that's the thing I don't like about, what if I bring in, maybe this would work. I take out Curtis Jones, Lamine Camara can kind of sit there, and Gravenberch can go there, and then you've got that as sort of a 2-3-6 sort of thing. I'll move the goalkeepers up here. I think that would work. And this is what it would look like, just as a base. It's the 4-2-3-1. And then Wirtz in there, Szoboszlai out here, Isak. That's a good team. But it's also got so much, like you could look at the bench and make any sort of changes you want, really. Like Jones could start, Engamoa could start off either wing, Livramento could start, Lacroix, Leone, Bradley, Fofana, Elliott. Maybe not Elliott. I don't know. I'd be interested. Malik Fofana's a little. I think that's kind of my rogue shout. I haven't heard that name thrown around a lot. Same with Livramento, actually. But yeah, ideally you'd have Alex Scott in there as well, and this would be it. But I think he's too expensive if we want to improve multiple. If we just needed a midfielder and we would sell McAllister and bring in Alex Scott, it would make a lot of sense because Alex Scott's better than him as of right now, and he's younger. But the fact that we need to splash 100 on Barcola, maybe 50 on Livramento, another 50 on Lacroix, another 50 on Kamara, 40, 50 on Fofana. Like that altogether is 100, 150, 200, 250, around 300 million, and then we're generating here, what, 5 mil for Ramsey, 10 for Chiesa, 60 for McAllister, and we're generating 70 from player sales alone, which isn't ideal. However, it just doesn't leave us enough budget for Alex Scott, I don't think, as nice as it would be to have him. But yeah, that is my variation on GeorgeScaife's LFC squad planner rebuild challenge thing, and I think I'm relatively happy with it. I like what this does for Frimpong, actually. I'll touch on Frimpong a little bit. He's just... It gives him an opportunity to play his best position, which is wing back. Whereas last season he was sometimes at right back and sometimes at right wing. And I think out of last season, his best performances came at right back. I thought he was good in the Community Shield, first game of the season. He got beat a couple times by... Might have been Eze, you know, I think he was still at Palace then off the left. But he was just quicker than him, so he would just run back and nick the ball back off him. So I think his best games came at right back. I would hate to see him at right wing, which is the main reason why I've brought in another attacker. Because I just don't think you win football games with Jeremy Frimpong as your right winger. Whereas if you have him here with Szoboszlai, it gives him such a good opportunity for overlaps. Yeah, and he's got Jeremy Jacquet covering, or even better actually, one of the fastest defenders in the league, Maxime Lacroix. I think Lacroix is the perfect signing for this, and I think Jeremy Jacquet is also a good alternative. And honestly, Giovanni Leone is good as well. I think they're all fantastic. And honestly, Joe Gomez, all four of them make great partners to Van Dijk. And the only issue is if Van Dijk gets some freak season-ending injury, or back to Jacquet and Lacroix, which I think isn't awful, but where have I put Van Dijk? There he is. But it isn't ideal either. Anyway, I think this kind of unlocks Jeremy Frimpong. It unlocks Florian Wirtz. It kind of has everyone playing in their most favoured position, bar Gravenberch and maybe Kirkes. But I still want to see Kirkes get forward. And I think it's definitely possible under Areola. Anyway, I've talked for way too long. That's my final squad planner. Actually, you know what? Let me chuck everyone back to where they were, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Hold on. Okay, well that is it. That is my final squad planner for the year. These are the players I would bring in. These are the players I would sell up the top here. Alex Scott is a dream addition to what I've got already here. And I think that'll do it for today's video. If you have enjoyed, please do drop a like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.